Hello friends, in earlier video I have discussed about different vector group related to where HV winding is Y connected or star connected and LV winding is either delta connected or star connected. In this video I will discuss about different vector group where HV winding is delta connected and LV winding is either delta connected or star connected. The first vector group is Dd0. Dd0 means HB is delta connected and LV is also delta connected, and induced EMF in LV winding is in phase with that of induced EMF in the HV winding. Now A1, A2, B1, B2 and C1, C2 represent the three phases coil of HV winding. And similarly, small a1, a2, b1, b2 and c1, c2 represent the three phases of the LV winding. Now, we have sorted a2 with b1 and b2 with c1 and c2 with a1. And supply terminal are a1, b1, c1. Here supply terminal a1, b1 and c1. In between a1 and b1, in between a1 and b1 there exists red phase coil. In between A1 and B1 there exists red phase coil. In between B1 and C1, in between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase coil. In between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase coil. And in between C1 in C1 and A1, in between C1 and A1 there exists blue phase coil. So this is the phasor diagram of the HV side winding. So it is a delta connected. We'll draw a virtual neutral and draw a straight line towards the supply terminal, that is A1 or red phase, and this red phase will be at 0 degree or 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock in the clock position. So in the LV side winding we have sorted A2 with B1 and B2 with C1 and C2 with A1. That is, winding connection in HV and LV winding is similar, and supply terminal or connection terminal A1, B1, C1. So in between A1 and B1 again there exists red phase. In between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase, and in between C1 and A1 there exists blue phase. Again draw the virtual neutral and connect it with the red phase. The red phase will remain at 0 or 12 o'clock in the clock position. So in the clock position the HV and LV winding remain at 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock. So there is 0 degree phase shift in between induced EMF of HV winding and LV winding. Therefore it is Dd0. Another vector group is Dd6. Here the HV side winding is connection is remains same in case of Dd0, that is A2 is sorted with B1 and B2 is sorted with C1 and C2 with A1 to form the delta connection. Here the phasor diagram, the connection terminal are A1, B1 and C1. In between A1 and B1 there exists red phase coil, and B1 and C1 there exists Y phase coil, and in between C1 and A1 there exists blue phase coil. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw a straight line towards the red phase connection, it will at 0 o'clock or 12 o'clock at clock rotation. But in case of Dd6 the LV side winding connection is different. That is, here the connection terminal A2, B2, C2 instead of A1, B1, C1, and A1 is sorted with B2, B1 is sorted with C2 and C1 is sorted with A2 to form the delta connection. That is, A2, B2 and C2 are the connection terminal, and in between A2 and B2, in between A2 and B2 there exists red phase coil. In between B2 and C2, in between B2 and C2 there exists Y phase coil, and in between C2 and A2 there exists blue phase coil. So you can see the polarity has been reversed for each phases in respect of with respect to HV side winding. Here it is a R phase winding for coil for HV side, but in case of LV side it is 180 degree reverse. Similarly for Y phase it is the Y phase coil, connection terminal B1 for Y phase it is opposite polarity. Similarly for blue phase. So if I draw the virtual neutral and the neutral point is here, and if I connect it towards the connection terminal, that is A2, it will show the clock position of 6 o'clock. So it is the minutes needles. It will show the HV side winding phase, that is A1 capital A1, and it is the hours needle which shows the LV side winding needle, that is at 0 o'clock. So it is Dd6. So another vector group, that is Dy11. Here the HV side winding connection remains same in earlier two cases, that is A2 is sorted with B1, B2 is sorted with C1, C2 with A1, and connection terminal are A1, B1, C1. A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. In between A1 and B1 there exists red phase coil. In between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase coil. In between A1 and C1 there exists blue phase coil. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw a straight line, it will be at 0 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the clock position. Now LV side winding is star connected. That is A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal, and A2, B2, C2 are shorted to form the star formation in the LV side winding. So the phasor diagram shows here A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal, and A2, B2, C2 are sorted together to form the star connection. So from the star point, if I draw a straight line towards the 12 o'clock position or 0 o'clock position, you can see there is a 30-degree phase shift from the 12 o'clock. That is, you can see the LV side winding induced EMF is leading 30-degree that of HV side winding induced EMF, and that is why it is called Dy11. That is, HV side winding is delta connected, LV side winding is Y connected, and induced EMF in the LV side winding lead by 30-degree that of the induced EMF of the HV side winding. Now another vector group, that is Dy5. That is, HV is delta connected. The connection is similar that in case of previous three cases. That is, A2 is sorted with B1 and B2 with C1 and C2 with A1. A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal, and HV side winding, that is red phase, remain at 0 o'clock with respect to virtual neutral. Now in the LV side winding is star connected. Here the connection terminal are A2, B2, C2 instead of A1, B1 and C1, and A1, B1 and C1 are sorted together to form the star formation. Connection terminal are A2, B2 and C2. You can see the red phase is opposite polarity that of the HV side winding, and similarly for blue phase, and similarly for yellow and blue phase. So A1, B1 and C1 are sorted together to form the star point. So if I draw the straight line towards the clock position 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock and extend it towards the downwards, it will be 6 o'clock. In clock position, the A2 remains at 5 o'clock. That is, the LV side winding induced EMF is lag by 150-degree that of the HV side winding induced EMF, and that is why it is called Dy5. Another vector group, that is Dy1. In case of Dy1, the HV side winding connection is different. Here A1, A2 represent the red phase coil, B1, B2 represent the Y phase coil, and C1, C2 represent the blue phase coil. Here I have sorted A1 with B2 and B1 with C2 and C1 with A2 to form the delta connection, and A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. So A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. In between A1 and C1, in between A1 and C1, there exists red phase coil. There exists red phase coil. In between B1 and C1, in between B1 and C1, there exists blue phase coil. In between B1 and C1, there exists blue phase coil. In between A1 and B1, in between A1 and B1, there exists Y phase coil. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw a straight line towards the red phase, that is A1, it will be at 0 or 12 o'clock at clock rotation. In case of star connection, we have sorted A2, B2, C2 to form the star formation in the LV side winding, and A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. So A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. A2, B2 has been sorted to form the star point. If I draw a vertical line towards the 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock position from the star point, the red phase will be at 1 o'clock, or it will be 30-degree lag that of 12 o'clock. So you can see the LV side induced winding induced EMF is lag by 30-degree that of the HV side winding induced EMF, and that is why it is called Dy1. Another vector group is Dy7. That is, HV side winding is delta connected and LV side winding is Y connected, and the LV side winding induced EMF will be leading that of the HV side winding induced EMF by 150-degree, or you can say LV side winding induced EMF lag by 210-degree that of HV side winding induced EMF. So A1 is sorted to B2, and B1 has been sorted to C2, and C1 is sorted to A2 to form the delta connection, and A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. So A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal. In between A1 and C1, there exists red phase coil. In between B1 and A1 and B1, in between A1 and B1, there exists Y phase coil, and in between B1 and C1, there exists blue phase coil in the HV side winding. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw a straight line towards the red phase, it will be at 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock in the clock rotation. In case of LV side winding, the connection terminal are A2, B2, C2 instead of A1, B1, C1, and here A1 and B1, C1 are sorted to form the star point or connection. So A2, B2, C2 are the connection terminal. A1, B1, C1 had been sorted to form the star point. If I draw a straight line towards the 12 o'clock and further extend towards the 180-degree, it will show 6 o'clock in the clock rotation. So this A2 or red phase connection terminal will be at 7 o'clock position, and that is why it is Dy7. That is, LV side winding induced EMF is leading by 150-degree that of the HV side winding induced EMF, and that is why it is called Dy7. Another vector group is Dd2. That is, HV is delta connected and LV is also delta connected, and LV side induced EMF will be lag by 60-degree that of the HV side induced EMF. So in case of HV side winding, there are three coils A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 represent the R, Y, P phases of the coil. So A1 is sorted with B1, B2, and B1 is sorted with C2, and C1 is sorted with A2 to form the delta connection. And connection terminal are A1, B1, C1. So connection terminal are A1, B1, C1. In between A1 and C1, you can see there exists the red phase coil. In between A1 and C1, there exists red phase coil. In between A1 and B1, there exists Y phase coil. In between A1 and B1 there exists Y phase coil. In between B1 and C1, there exists blue phase coil. So in between B1 and C1 there exists blue phase coil. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw the vertical line, a straight line towards the red phase connection, it will be at 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock in the clock rotation. So this is the red phase, yellow phase and blue phase connection for the LV side phase. So in case of the LV side connection, here the connection terminals remain same, that is A1, B1, C1, but I have sorted A2 with B1 and B2 with C1 and C2 with A1. So here the connection terminal are A1, B1, C1, and here in between A1 and B1, there exists red phase coil of the LV side winding. In between A1 and B1 there exists red phase coil of the LV side winding. This is the red phase for the LV side phase. And in between B1 and C1, there exists Y phase coil of the LV side winding. In between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase coil. This is the Y phase for LV side. And in between A1 and C1, in between C1 and A1 there exists the blue phase. In between C1 and A1 there is the blue phase. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw the vertical line towards the clock rotation 12 o'clock and draw a straight line from the virtual neutral towards the red phase connection, that is A1, it will be at 2 o'clock in the clock rotation. So A1, capital A1 is the HV side winding induced EMF, that is at 12 o'clock, and LV side winding, that is virtual with respect to virtual neutral, will be at 2 o'clock, and that is why it is called Dd2. Another vector group is Dd8, that is HV side is delta connected and LV side is also delta connected, and LV side winding induced EMF is leading that of the HV side winding induced EMF by 120 degree. So in case of HV side winding connection, the connection is similar in case of Dd2, that is A1 is sorted with B2, B1 is sorted with C2 and C1 is sorted with A2 to form the delta connection, and connection terminal A1, B1 and C1. In between A1 and C1 there exists red phase, in between A1 and B1 there exists Y phase, and in between B1 and C1 there exists B phase coil. So with respect to virtual neutral, if we draw the straight line to the A1 terminal or red phase terminal, it will be at 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock in the clock rotation. In case of LV side winding, the connection terminal are A2, B2, C2, and A1 is sorted with B2, B1 is sorted with C2, and C1 is sorted with A2 to form the delta formation. So in between A2, B2, C2 are the connection terminal, and in between A2 and B2 there exists red phase. In between A2 and B2 there exists red phase. In between B2 and C2, there exists Y phase. In between B2 and C2 there exists Y phase, and in between C2 and A2 there exists blue phase coil. So if I draw the virtual neutral, is here, and if I draw a vertical line towards 12 o'clock and again extend towards downwards, it will show 6 o'clock in the clock rotation. From the virtual neutral, if I draw a straight line towards the red phase, that is A2 connection, it will be at 8 o'clock in the clock rotation. So here it is the minute needle shows the HV side winding connection, and the hour needle shows the LV side winding induced EMF. So that is why it is Dd8 as LV side winding induced EMF is leading that of the HV side winding induced EMF by 120 degree. Another vector group connection is Dd10. So in case of HV side connection, we have sorted A2 with B1 and B2 with C1 and C2 with A1 to form the delta connection, and connection terminal are A1, B1 and C1. So connection terminal are A1, B1, C1. In between A1 and B1, in between A1 and B1 there exists red phase coil. In between B1 and C1, in between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase coil. In between C1 and A1, in between C1 and A1 there exists the blue phase coil in the HV side winding. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw a straight line towards the A1 terminal, that is red phase terminal, it will be at 12 o'clock in the clock rotation. In case of LV side winding connection, we have sorted A1 with B2 and B1 with C2 and C1 with A2 to form the delta connection, and connection terminal are A1, B1, C1. So A1, B1, C1 are the connection terminal, and in between A1 and C1, in between A1 and C1, you can see there exists red phase coil. In between A1 and C1 there exists red phase coil. In between A1 and B1, in between A1 and B1 there exists Y phase coil, and in between B1 and C1 there exists blue phase coil. In between B1 and C1 there exists blue phase coil. So it is the connection terminal for red phase. If I draw the virtual neutral and draw a vertical line, it will show the 12 o'clock at the clock rotation. From the virtual neutral, if I draw a straight line towards the A1 terminal, it will be at 10 o'clock in the clock rotation. So it is the HV side induced winding induced EMF, and it is the LV side winding induced EMF. It is 10 o'clock. So you can see it is HV side is delta connected, LV side is also delta connected, and LV side winding induced EMF is leading that of the HV side winding induced EMF by 60 degree, and that is why it is called Dd10. Another vector group connection is Dd4. In case of Dd4, the HV side winding connection is similar that of in case of Dd10, that is A2 is sorted with B1, B2 is sorted with C1, and C2 is sorted with A1 to form the delta connection, and connection terminal are A1, B1, C1. A1, B1 and C1 are the connection terminal. In between A1 and B1 there exists red phase, in between B1 and C1 there exists Y phase, and in between C1 and A1 there exists blue phase. So if I draw the virtual neutral and draw a straight line, it will be at 12 o'clock or at the clock rotation. In case of the LV side winding, the connection terminal are A2, B2, C2. Now we have sorted A2 with B1 and B2 with C1 and C2 with A1 to form the delta connection. So A2, B2, C2 are the connection terminal. The phase for red, yellow and blue is reversed. So in between A2 and C2, in between A2 and C2, you can see there exists red phase coil. In between B2 and A2, in between B2 and A2, there exists Y phase coil. In between B2 and C2, in between B2 and C2, there exists blue phase coil. The connection terminal are A2, B2, C2. If I draw the virtual neutral and draw a vertical line, it will be at 12 o'clock in the clock rotation. Again extend it towards downwards, it will be at 6 o'clock. From the virtual neutral, if I draw the straight line towards the A2 terminal, that is the red phase connection terminal, it will be at 4 o'clock in the clock rotation. So HB side winding is delta connected and LV side winding is again delta connected, but as the LV side winding induced EMF is lagging that of the HV side winding induced EMF by 120 degree, that is why it is called Dd4.